Good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of The Message. I'm your host, Donatus King. We'll spend this next hour with one purpose in mind, and that one purpose is delivering the message that God is Almighty. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be is a piece of God. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be was made by God. Everything that ever happened is happening right now or ever will happen was made to happen by God. God has a master plan for all time and all creation. God is Almighty. The message is brought to you by, is produced by the Society of Knowledge Incorporated. The Society is an interdenominational, religious, spiritual organization. Our members come from various different religious and spiritual backgrounds. We have various different religious and spiritual beliefs. Although we come from different backgrounds and have different beliefs, there's one belief that we share. There's one piece of knowledge that we hold in common. And that's the knowledge that there is a being, by no matter what name we may have been taught to call that being, by no matter what name we may have come to know that being, whether that name be God, Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, Jehovah, Buddha, nature, by no matter what name, we know that there is a being that possesses not some of the power, not most of the power, but all of the power. We know that there is indeed an almighty being. That's the reason we do this show, and the only reason we do this show, to deliver the message that that being that personally I call God, that being is indeed almighty. Today is June the 20th, 2019, and I remind that fact because tonight, as we are on most Thursdays, we are live. And I remind you of that fact because this show is an open discussion. It's a two-way conversation. For those of you that are watching by Facebook, Brother Willett, thank you for joining us on Facebook. Brother Stephen, thank you for joining us on Facebook. For those of you that are watching by Facebook, I invite you to post a comment. Share your comment with the world. If there's something that's going on in your church, your mosque, your masjid, your synagogue, your temple, your place of worship, and you want to let the world know about it, post your comments on Facebook or call in and share your comments on the telephone. Those of you that are watching by TV, you can call in. You see the telephone number. That's 504-483-3336. Call in and share your comments. If there's something that's going on in your nonprofit organization, Brother Willie, there may be something that's going on over at the mosque, let us know. And we'll make sure that we get that information out. Call, let us know. More important than what's going on in your place of worship, more important than what's going on in your nonprofit. If there's something that God has done for you in your life, and I used, if God has worked a miracle in your life, and I use that term literally, a miracle, because the God that I'm here to tell you about is working miracles in the year 2019. June 20th, 2019, God worked miracles. God is working miracles. As I speak right now, God is working miracles. I'm not, literally. There are things that God is doing right now that cannot be explained other than to acknowledge and testify that they are miracles. So if God has worked a miracle in your life, share your testimony. Post it on Facebook. Sister Michelle, thank you. Brother Ryan out there, Messenger Ryan out there in Lafayette, thank you for joining us on Facebook. Again, if God has worked a miracle in your life, share your testimony because it might be somebody. It might be somebody that's in need of a miracle. It may be someone that has tried all different kinds of medicine, surgery, and everything else. Look, I know that there are some folks out there that are suffering with pain. Understand what I'm saying? They're suffering with pain. It may be a shoulder pain. It might be a back pain. And you might be trying all kinds of stuff. Salon pass, icy hot, all different kinds of things. You may have had surgery and nothing worked. I'm here to tell you that God can heal your body. God can take that pain away. God can do it. No matter what you've tried that has not worked, don't give up. Don't lose hope. God can take that pain away. Understand what I'm saying? God can just like that. It'll be, you won't even know what to do but say, look, thank you, God. Thank you, God. So if God has healed your body, if God has taken some pain away from you, share your testimony with the world. Give somebody some encouragement. Give somebody some hope Let them know that the same way God did it for you, God can do it for them. All right. We are going to move on. As I say, today is June the 20th. We will have our announcements. This is the order of our show. We'll have the announcements. After our announcements, we'll have testimonies. After our testimonies, we'll have our religious spiritual study, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. Coming out of Facebook, Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. After that, and tonight, in our religious spiritual study session, we'll be studying Jewish sacred texts. Jewish sacred texts. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So if you know a little bit something about the Jewish sacred texts, or if you have some questions, or if you have some comments about the Jewish sacred texts, join the discussion. Post your comments on Facebook. Call in the studio. Our words inspiration tonight will come out of the book of Exodus, starting in chapter 6, verses 1, and we'll see just how far we get. Announcements, www.godisalmighty. That's our main website, and I invite you to log that website into your web browser. And 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can visit that website, and there are links. All you have to do is just click a little button, and it'll take you to all of our social media platforms. We have a blog page. We have a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You don't have to worry about all them different addresses. Just lock that website into your browser, go to that website, and they just got little links you could just click on. Just click on. You don't have to worry about writing all that stuff down. Just go to our main website. Okay, Rock of Ages Ministries International. I keep saying this. I need to call Apostle Bailey. Make a visit. Haven't been on the show in a while, but Apostle Bailey is doing some great work in the greater Lafayette area and in the greater New Orleans area. That's their main website. There's www.ronniebailey.com. New Orleans Peacekeepers doing some tremendous work here in the greater New Orleans area. That number, 504-500-1706. The Peacekeepers, and that's Minister Willie Muhammad and the folks over there at Mosque 46 out in New Orleans East, going throughout our community, working with folks, trying to help folks talk out any kind of disagreements they may have. You know, we hear so often nowadays about people getting into humbugs, getting into disagreements, and pulling out a pistol, trying to shoot somebody, shooting somebody. The peacekeepers are going out trying to keep that from happening, trying to help people just walk it out, talk it out. And that's the New Orleans Peacekeepers. You don't have to be a member of the Nation of Islam to participate. You don't have to be a member of the Nation of Islam to have the peacekeepers come out and help you resolve your conflict. It's open to all folks. All folks. I've gone out when the peacekeepers were initially getting started here in the city of New Orleans. That's years and years ago. I went out and worked with them. So they're doing some great work, and they've been around for a while, and I'm glad to see that they're keeping up the work. In the New Orleans area, you can call 311 between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. for free smoke detectors. And as always, please check your vehicle's back seat for babies. You know, it's getting close to 100 degrees out there nowadays, and when you factor in the heat index, it's over 100 degrees. It doesn't take a child very long when you're locked up in the car in the back seat to die. Okay, and I'm putting it blunt, to die. You know, and children are dying. They are getting killed because folks are forgetting about them, leaving them in the back seat. Now, I always say, I'm saying this often, I'm going to keep repeating it. Nowadays, some of us are in the habit, as soon as we get in our car, we put our telephone to our ear, and we'll be talking all the while we're driving, and when we park and getting out the car, we still have that phone to our ear. We're not thinking about anything, and the next thing you know, we left a baby in the back seat. So please check your car's back seats for babies, and a good trick is to that phone I was talking about, keep it in the ear. Take that phone, put that phone in the back seat by your baby. That way you won't forget that baby when you get out your car. All right? Check on those babies. Let's save our babies. Funeral services this coming Friday. Funeral service for Mrs. Jera L. Hackett. And Mrs. Hackett is the mother of Evangelist Norma Chapman. You've seen Evangelist here on the show. Evangelist Norma Chapman, the viewing of Miss Hackett's will be this coming Friday, tomorrow, June 21st, from 1 to 6 p.m., and that'll be at Williams Funeral Home, 213 East Minnesota Street in Brookhaven, Mississippi. And the funeral service will be Saturday, June 22nd, 11 a.m. at Mary Temple Church of God in Christ, and that's 542 South 2nd Street in Brookhaven, Mississippi. Prayers go out to Evangelist Chapman and her family, and I know if anybody knows that Evangelist Chapman knows that God can make a way. Even in the midst of her sorrow right now, God can bring her peace. So we're praying for peace for the Hackett family, particularly Evangelist Norma Chapman. Sister Margaret, thank you for joining us out the Lafayette area. Thank you for joining us on Facebook. Sister Margaret, I know there's always things that you're into out there in the Lafayette area. Why don't you post a comment and let us know what's going on so I can make sure that I read that over the air. Muhammad Mosque number 46. Muhammad Mosque number 46. They are sponsoring an event. And that event, we talked about it last week. We're going to talk about it for next week also. That event is Saving Our Sons. Saving Our Sons. It's a weekly manhood development sessions, and those are located at 4201 Diamond Road, New Orleans, Louisiana. And it's for young men ages 13 to 17. And they hold classes every Monday from 7 p.m. to 8:45 p.m. And what they do, I'm just going to read a little bit of stuff here. They work with our young men on conflict resolution, health and hygiene, respect for the female, financial literacy, team building skills, history, and more. All right, while many are up in arms about the youth crime in the city, Saving Our Sons is offering its contribution towards a solution. Again, Muhammad Mosque number 46, 4201 Diamond Road. And guess what else? Very important, it's free. Okay, it is indeed free. All right, testimonies. I don't think we have any testimonies tonight, so we're going to get right into our religious, spiritual study. Prove all things, hold fast that which is good. Coming out of the first book of Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. And as always, I remind you as always, if you hear me say something on this show, don't take it for fact. Okay? Check on it. Do like Thessalonians say, prove all things. If you hear me say something, check for yourself. Okay? Do some fact checking. If you hear one of our callers say something, if you see somebody post something on Facebook, fact check it yourself. All right? Do a little research. It's so much easier nowadays. So, it's not that many years ago, relatively speaking, when it was much harder to research things. Okay, I can remember the times when I used to have to go to the library. Sometimes it'd be cold, sometimes it'd be raining, but if I wanted to check something out, I'd have to go to the library. Sometimes I have to use stuff to call them microfiche to go, that goes to show you how long ago I'm talking. And it's not that long now. Because nowadays we think about computers and cell phones and all the rest of that, but look, 30 years ago, it's kind of hard to believe, but 30 years ago, you didn't have all that stuff. All right? Didn't have all that. Right? But we have it nowadays. It's so easy. You can lay in your pajamas inside your house in research. So prove all things, hold fast that which is good. All right, Jewish sacred text. The Tanakh. And I might be mispronouncing it, and I apologize if I am. Just let me know. The Tanakh. And this is the Jewish Bible. All right? And when I say the Jewish Bible, it's the Jewish canon. All right? And when I'm saying the Jewish canon, what that means is this is the official Jewish Bible, the official version of the Jewish sacred text. Just like Christians have a Bible that's the canonized Bible. It's been declared the official Bible. But we have several different canonized Bibles, and it all depends upon who's doing the canonization, who's the one that's saying it's official. We know that they have the Catholic Bible, and there's some books in the Catholic Bible that's not in the King James Version of the Bible. So it's different versions of the Bible, in just the same way as there's different versions of the Christian Bible, there are different versions of the Jewish Bible. But the Jewish Bible that's supposed to be the number one recognized canon of the Jewish Bible is called the Tanakh. All right? And that consists of, it's an acronym of the three sets of books which comprise it. The Pentateuch, also known as the Torah, the book of prophets, Nevi'im, and the book of writings, Ketuvim. All right? So those make up the Jewish Bible. The Jewish Bible is known in Hebrew as the Tanakh, an acronym of the three sets of books which comprise it: the Pentateuch, Torah, the prophets, Nevi'im, and the writings, Ketuvim. The Tanakh is the Jewish canon, which assumed its final shape between the Babylonian exile and the first century Christian era. The sages who took part in the finalization of the canon excluded certain texts known as the Apocrypha and the Pseudepigrapha, which they did not consider divinely inspired. The Jewish canon is distinguished from the Christian canon in the non-inclusion of the New Testament and a slightly different order of presentation of the prophets. Okay, now when I'm reading this information that I'm reading, this text comes off of the web, and it comes from a website that's embassies.gov.il, UN Geneva, about Israel /people/pages/Jewish-sacred-text. Right? So that's where it comes from, embassies.gov. And if you want to do your own research, you could just go to Google and type in Jewish sacred text, and it should pull up. This should be one of the pages that it pulls up. But what I just want to take a little bit of time and talk about, it speaks here. Okay, this information, it talks about the sages, and sages, really wise folks that got together and decided what were going to be the official writings included in the official Jewish canon. See, that's what I was talking about earlier. See, there are a whole lot of, look, understand something. See this stuff that was supposedly written thousands of years ago? And we pick it up now, just like I pick up this Bible here right now, and they got all this stuff up in there about the book of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, all that. All that stuff wasn't in one place like it is right now. Okay? There were all different kind of writings, all different kind of stories, all different kind of books that was floating all around. And a group of people got together and said, okay, well, this one here, we think this one is right. Or this one here, understand, now, get some real understanding here. Sometimes they said that they were going to include certain books in the official book because that book supported whatever position they were pushing. Okay? So if they were pushing for equality for everybody, then any kind of writing, any kind of book that spoke about that and advocated for that, they included it in official. But now, if they were trying to take the position that some people were less worthy than others, and I'm a flat out say, if some race of people was less worthy than another race of people, then any writing that didn't reflect that position, they would not include it. Okay? So when you do your research, you find out that when the books that we have in the Christian Bible nowadays, we look at when the Christian Bible was declared to be the official books of the Christian Bible, and we look around at other stories that were floating around at the same time that didn't make it into the Christian Bible. I've read some stories that are thousands of years old about Jesus that's not in the Bible. I've read some stories about Jesus when he's a little boy. When you read the Bible, the Christian Bible right now, it talks about Jesus very little bit about when he was a little boy. Okay, a very little bit from his birth to the time he was 12 when he went in the temple, talking the folks in the temple, and he got left behind by Mary and Joseph, and they got mad. They had to come back and get him out the temple. Okay. Very little about his childhood. And then it skips from his childhood, from when he was about 12 years old, it skips to when he was in his 30s. Okay, that's the official canon, the official Christian Bible. So in all those other years of Jesus' life, we have very few stories that fit into or that's included in the Christian Bible. But guess what? I've read books that scholars say was around way back when the official Bible was coming together. Books about how when Jesus was a little boy, there was a dead bird, and he made a little dead bird come to life. All different kind of stuff about when he was a little boy. But it didn't make it into the official version of the Bible. So we're reading about the Apocrypha and the Pseudepigrapha, which they did not consider divinely inspired. All right. The Pentateuch, okay, that's the Torah. Okay, now, Christian Bibles, if you got the Old Testament in your Bible, some Christian Bibles nowadays, all they have is the New Testament in it. But a lot of them, the King James Version, has the Old Testament and the New Testament. When you go to the Old Testament, the first 5 books in the Old Testament, that's what's called the Pentateuch. Okay, 5. That's a penta, 5. Okay, the Pentateuch. Those 5 books, again, are the book of Genesis, the book of Exodus, and that's what we're reading out now, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So those 5 books, the Pentateuch, that's what the Torah is made of. So when you hear Jewish folks talk about the Torah, now you know what they're talking about. They're talking about the first 5 books in the Bible. Okay, the Torah, at the basis of all Jewish sacred texts, is the Torah. In its most basic sense, the Torah is the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses, which tell the story of the creation of the world, God's covenant with Abraham and his descendants, the exodus from Egypt, the revelation at Mount Sinai, where God enunciated the 10 Commandments, the wanderings of the Israelites in the desert, and a recapitulation of that experience shortly before the entrance to the Promised Land. While Jewish tradition has throughout the centuries ascribed divine authorship to the Torah, many scholars and modern Jewish thinkers hold that the Torah was compiled incrementally by various authors over a long period of time, making it not only the shaper of Jewish history, but also its product. All right, so now that's the Torah. All right, now the next one, the book of prophets. The books of the prophets contain historical writings covering the period between the settlement of the Jewish people in the land of Israel and their exile to Babylon, as well as the moral and religious exhortations of the prophets, among them Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Ezekiel. And next, the writings, also known as the hagiographa, are a mixture of liturgical and secular poetry, wisdom literature, and historical writings. Okay, now, so we have the Torah. Okay, so just to recap, we have the Torah, we have the book of prophets, and we have the writings. And guess what happened? Over a period of time, so we have those writings, okay? Those Jewish writings, we have that. But then over a period of time, the rabbis, the religious leaders, started interpreting what those writings meant. They started interpreting them and making comments about what they meant. And those comments became known as the Mishnah and the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud and Jewish Talmud. The Bible, the Jewish Bible, has given rise to numerous commentaries which are included among the Jewish sacred writings. The first known Jewish commentaries date from the 2nd century before Christian era, when Aramaic replaced Hebrew, as a vernacular. Rabbinical commentaries have proliferated from the Talmudic era to the present day. Their purpose in many cases was to make the biblical text, as well as the rabbinic traditions concerning it, accessible to medieval and then modern audiences. The Mishnah, according to tradition, the oral law, an interpretation and explanation of the Torah, the written law, was given to Moses at Mount Sinai and handed down by a succession of lay and clerical elites. By the 2nd century before Christian era, and especially after the destruction of the Second Temple, 70 Christian era, the rabbinical leadership, faced with a proliferation of traditions and interpretations, began to arrange and edit the material. The final result was a document redacted, arranged, and called the Mishnah, a word signifying repetition and teaching. The Mishnah is divided into 6 orders, each comprised of tractates, ordinarily reckoned as 63 in number. Each tractate is divided into chapters, which in turn contain various numbers of teachings, each also known as a Mishnah. And now we come to the last item, and that's the Talmud. With the advent of the Mishnah, a class of rabbis discussed this document, elaborated on it, and performed revisions. The totality of their endeavor is the Gemara. The Gemara and the Mishnah together form the Talmud, a word that refers to the act of study. There are, in fact, 2 Talmudim. Jerusalem, so the Jerusalem Talmud, compiled in the land of Israel, and Babylonian Talmud. The Babylonian Talmud covers 37 of the 63 standard tractates and includes several later works, about 2.5 million words on 4,894 folio pages in all. The Jerusalem Talmud is structured differently, shorter, more succinct, at times cryptic, and more focused on legal matters. So we have the sacred text of the Jewish religion, and I had an exchange during the week, with one of my friends about the Talmud, and we exchanged messages, we exchanged different information, different stuff that we found on the web. We exchanged that, so just so that we're learning from each other, and learning from others, and exchanging information, exchanging ideas, not judging, but exchanging ideas. And that's something I said earlier. Matter of fact, I didn't say it, and I forgot to say it, that the doors to the Society of Knowledge, the organization that produces this show, that sponsors this show, the doors to it is open. Okay, the membership, in other words, our membership rolls are now open. So if you, first of all, in order to be a member, you have to know that there's an almighty being. It doesn't matter what name you use, but you have to know that there is an almighty being. You have to know that there's some being, some force, some entity that's in charge of all of this, that's making everything happen. Okay, that's what you have to know if you want to be a member of the society. Now, it doesn't matter what name you use or anything else like that, but you have to have that piece of knowledge. And if you have that piece of knowledge, and you're the type of mind that the Spirit has led to question things, when you hear things, you question it. If you're at a place right now spiritually where you don't feel comfortable where you go to worship, if you're at a place right now where you feel guilty because some of the things that you're doing, it's against the rules of the place that you're worshiping. If you're at a place where you just don't feel that you should remain there, and if the Spirit is moving on you to search out, to find some place where you really feel comfortable, give us a call. Okay? Give us a call. That number is 504-821-3221. let me know. Let me know that you're interested in learning more about the Society of Knowledge. And I invite you right now to find out more about the Society of Knowledge. Go to our website. That main website is www.godisalmighty.org. Simple, real simple, God is Almighty. www.godisalmighty.org. And you visit that website, and if you want more information about joining the society, just leave a message, and someone will be in touch with you. But again, as you see here, we are open. We study all different types of spiritual matters, religious matters. We study it. We don't judge anybody, criticize anybody. We are here to help each other in our quest for enlightenment. Okay, that's what we're about. But the main thing that we're about is to deliver the message that there is an almighty being. All right. As I was saying, before I move on, there's some questions. There are some questions that have been raised about the relationship between Judaism and the Jewish people and Christianity and Jesus Christ. And what you heard me when I was talking about those sacred texts, okay, if you go through that, just to get a little bit clearer picture, okay, we start off first with the written word, and that's the Pentateuch, those 5 books, the first 5 books in the Bible. Then after those first 5 books in the Bible, you have the prophets like Ezekiel, Isaiah. Okay, that's also in the Old Testament. Then you have other writings, and those comprise the sacred texts of the Jewish religion. Now, after you had those writings, then you had the rabbis that read those writings and came up with their explanation, their interpretation as to what those writings mean. And then that explanation, that interpretation, those commentaries, they were written down and they became part of the Jewish sacred text. And that's where we come up with things like the Mishnah and the Talmud. Okay? Now, when you read through that, well, there are some interpretations. Understand what I'm about to tell you now. There are some interpretations that's very, very controversial. Okay? Very, very controversial. And, some folks have questioned the religion of Islam and have questioned as to whether the religion of Islam is too critical of Jesus Christ and Christianity. Well, when you read some of the comments and some of the interpretations that are contained in some of these Jewish writings, they are very, very, very harsh. They're very harsh about Jesus. They're very harsh about Mary. They're just very, very harsh. So I invite you, especially there's one, and I'm not even gonna read it out. I'm not gonna characterize it. I'm just gonna give you this name, and you go look it up for yourself. And it's called Sanhedrin 106A. Sanhedrin, Sanhedrin 106A. All right? So just look that up. And when you look that up, you'll find some information that I didn't know until I started doing a little research. But look it up. Look it up for yourself. And the brother that introduced me to that material, I thank you. I don't want, call out Brother Leroy. Thank you for joining us on Facebook. Brother Eves, thank you for joining us on Facebook. But again, I invite you to do that. Brother Eves, I was looking at your Facebook page, and I saw that you had a picture of your father on there. You were kind of giving a tribute to your mother and your father. And man, you do definitely resemble your pops. All right, our words of inspiration coming out of the book of Exodus, chapter 6, and we're going to start on verse 1, and we'll see just how far we go. Then the Lord said unto Moses. Now look, let me stop, because some of us were not watching the show last week. But last week, what we read, and I'm going to just pick this up, coming out of chapter 5, out of the book of Exodus, chapter 5, verse 23. That's where we left off. That was the last verse in chapter 5. We had Moses talking to God Almighty, and here Moses, I'm going to start verse 22. And Moses returned unto the Lord and said, Lord, wherefore hast thou so evil entreated this people? Why is it that thou hast sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in thy name, he hath done evil to this people, neither hast thou delivered thy people at all. So now we see Moses, okay, God's number one boy. Okay, Moses, the star of the show. Moses, the same one that went up to the mountain and got the Ten Commandments. Moses, that same one. We see him now questioning God. Okay? He's saying, God, look what you did to me. You got me going, talking to Pharaoh, telling Pharaoh to let my people go. And Pharaoh didn't do anything but just got mad and started treating my people worse. Said, God, why did you do such a cruel thing? And Moses is telling the truth, because that's exactly what happened. When Moses started standing up and talking all that stuff to Pharaoh, Pharaoh just cracked down on the Hebrews, made life miserable for them. Life already was miserable. He made it even more miserable. And we see Moses saying, God, why you do something like that, God? And we talked about it last week, that sometimes things happen in our lives that we go through some changes. And yeah, you can admit it, that sometimes you question God. God, why is this happening to me? Why do you have me going through these changes? Why? You see, that's part of the human condition. That's part of being human. That sometimes when times get rough, when it gets tough, we question God. Especially if we know that everything is in God's hands. Especially if we know that at any second God could just will it, that God could just snap his fingers, that God could just speak it into existence, and everything would change. See, and this is what Moses is going through right now. Moses is saying, look, God, I've been your boy. I've done everything that you've told me. And now look at the position that you've put me in. Now, you know, he had to be feeling mighty low for him to stand up to God and question God. And yes, he was feeling low because the Hebrew people, the Jews, were questioning Moses. The Jews were saying, Moses, why did you go out there messing with Pharaoh? Moses, since you've been messing with Pharaoh, our lives has got worse. So now the people have turned on Moses, and now Moses is turning on God. All right? And now what we're reading tonight, in chapter 6, now God is talking to Moses. And what God tells Moses, let's go through that one more time. Then the Lord said unto Moses, now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. Look at what God, you know, I'm going to get like those commentaries. You know, we read about those commentaries, those rabbis that made comments and came up with the Mishnah and the Talmud. I'm going to get like them now. I'm going to give you some commentary. Look what this is doing. Look what God's saying. God is saying, Moses, now you're going to see what I'm going to do. He said, God said, Moses, look what it says. It says right, Moses, now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. You see, sometimes we got to go through some stuff just so that we can appreciate the place that we're going. Understand? Well, let me slow down. Let me back up a little bit. You know, there's a saying. It's an old saying. You never miss what? Your water until your well runs dry. You don't appreciate something until you lose it. You don't appreciate something until you lose it. See, God said, Moses, understand something. Yeah. All this turmoil that you're going through, all this suffering that the people are going through, all of that hardship that they're going through, all of that is a part of my plan. See, because now you can see how bad your life can be. You can see that your life can be so bad that somebody's whipping on you all day, making you make bricks without straw, just treating you bad. And you got to go through that. I'm sending you through that because I'm going to do what? I'm going to bring you to a land of milk and honey. If you didn't go through all that pain, you wouldn't appreciate the joy. That's right, some Frankie Beverly, joy and pain. Sometimes you got to go through some pain so you can appreciate your joy. You see, if you sitting around eating ice cream all day, ice cream don't mean nothing to you. But you get to the point where you ain't got no ice cream. Not only don't you have ice cream, but you don't have any milk. Not only don't you have milk, you have water. You don't have nothing. When you get to that point, anything you get, you're going to appreciate it. God is saying, look, it's my plan that y'all go through all of this so that y'all will know just how great I am. Yeah, just how great I am. Let me talk to somebody right now. Somebody right now that's going through some stuff. Going through some stuff in your life. You may be sitting there right now not knowing where you're going to be able to lay your head down tomorrow. You know, I went to court. Understand what I'm saying? I'm a lawyer. That's what I do. That's how I get paid. I'm a lawyer. I went to court this week. In the case that I had, they had a whole lot of cases in front of mine. And me and my client were sitting there. And while we were sitting there, we were watching these other cases. And those other cases were evictions. Understand what I'm saying? Evictions. This is real. So we're sitting down and we're watching the landlords coming up and telling the judge that this person hasn't paid rent in 3 months and I want to kick them out so we can get somebody else in there. And I tell you, you know, heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. There were folks that got up there. There was one gentleman There's one gentleman, and this is really heartbreaking. The gentleman got up, and there's a young man, looked like late 20s, early 30s, young man. He came in there and he had work clothes on. And he explained to the judge, the landlord got up and said, look, this fella, he ain't paid rent in over 3 months. And it wasn't any acrimony, no animosity in the landlord's voice. He was just letting the court know, look, this man hasn't paid rent in over 3 months, and he can't live in our place for free. And the fella got up and talked to the judge. And he told the judge, Your Honor, what he says is true. He says, what he says is the truth. Now listen what I'm telling you right now. Understand this. The fella explained to the judge. He said, Your Honor, I'm working 2 jobs. He says, Your Honor, I have child support, and they're taking the money straight out of my check. Then he explained to the judge, he said, Your Honor, I was sent a bill for $6,000 from the Sewage and Water Board. Now, whether it was a mistake on the part of the Sewage and Water Board or what, a bill for $6,000 from the Sewage and Water Board. And Your Honor, after my child support, all my other bills, I just haven't had the money to pay the rent. And what makes it so heartbreaking is the landlord. The landlord was acknowledging to the judge that what the man was saying was true. The landlord was saying, yes, I understand that he's going through hard times, and I believe him. I know he's telling the truth. But the landlord was telling the judge, Your Honor, that's why we let him stay there, but we can't let him stay there forever. We know about the water bill, and we know that there's a dispute as to who's really responsible for that water bill. It might not even be him, but he's the one that's getting charged for it. And I tell this story. I tell this story because at the end of the day, what the judge said was, as bad as I feel for you, the people say they want their property, so they got to have it. You got to get out. Now, the great thing about it is that the judge asked the landlord to give the man a little bit more time, give him at least to the end of the month before he's evicted. And the landlord agreed to that because the landlord knew the guy wasn't a bad guy, but just circumstances had him in that position. And I'll go through the story. I'll share that story because I know there's somebody out there right now that's in some doubt as to where they're going to be able to lay down their head. There's someone out there that's in some doubt right now about where their next meal is going to come from. And I'm here to tell you that you might be just like that fellow I was talking about, that in court, a good guy, just some bad stuff, circumstances happen to. You might be like that. You might be somebody that goes to church all the time, that prays all the time, and you're going through a rough patch right now, going through some difficult times right now. I'm here to tell you, have hope. Have hope. And I'm not just here to tell you just have hope, just have hope. I'm here to tell you to have hope because God is almighty. No matter what you're going through, look, understand what I'm saying. No matter how bad you are right now, how bad off you are right now, it could be worse. Yes. And as long as you have that spark of the divine in you, as long as you have that spark of life, as long as you are on this side of the living, have hope. God can do something in your life. You heard me speak a little while ago about folks dealing with chronic pain. Yeah, in my profession, I represent clients that have been in auto accidents, represent clients that have degenerative disease, not caused by accident, but just degenerative. That they have bad disc in their back, bad disc in their neck, have torn rotator cuffs, have constant pain, that go through all kinds of surgeries, all kinds of injections. I'm here to tell you something. The God that I'm here to tell you about is the same God that was talking to Moses. The same God that said, look, Moses, I know what you're going through. But Moses, this was part of my plan. You might not understand it. You might disagree with my plan, but it's my plan. And guess what, Moses? My will be done. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah, it was somebody else that disagreed with God's plan. And that somebody else is somebody that the Bible calls Jesus Christ. You see, God had a plan for Jesus, a plan that included Jesus being spat on. It included Jesus being betrayed. It included Jesus being hung on the cross. That was part of God's plan for Jesus. Jesus didn't agree with that plan. The scripture tells us that Jesus said, look, if there's any kind of way possible, let this cup pass from me. I don't want to go through this. But at the end of the day, what did he do? He said, nevertheless, not my will, but thy will. You see, this story that we're reading here about Moses and the Israelites has the parallel to Jesus Christ. You see, it was not Moses' will that the Israelites, that the Hebrews would be made to make bricks without straw. That wasn't Moses' plan. Moses didn't want them to go through that. Let me share something with you. Let us get some understanding before we close out this show tonight. It's things that we're going to go through in our lives. The same way Moses went through some things in his life, the same way Jesus went through some things in his life, we're going to go through some stuff in our lives. There's going to be some times when we don't know which way is up, because that's part of God's plan. But as long as we have a breath of life in us, as long as we have that spark of the divine in us, God can turn things around. See, God's got a plan for us. Now, understand what I'm saying. The beauty about this, the whole beauty about it, is when you get to that point when God Almighty blesses you so that no matter what point you are in God's plan for you, no matter what stage you're in, it's beautiful when you can say, the same way Jesus said, nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. If you're laying on your pillow at night and you don't know where your head's going to be laying tomorrow night, it's beautiful to be able to say, Lord, I don't know where I'm going to be sleeping tomorrow, but I know I'm in your hands, and fall peacefully asleep. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's marvelous to know that I don't have any food in my refrigerator. I don't know what I'm going to eat tonight. But I ain't worried because it's in God's hand. I know God can make a way. And find that peace even in the middle of adversity. Find that peace. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no, I ain't afraid. That's beautiful. I ain't afraid. Knowing that God is in control. Knowing that indeed God is almighty. Ain't nothing going to happen to you. Nothing. Unless it's God's will. And if it's God's will, then ain't nothing going to stop it from happening to you. And knowing that, wait a minute, this is the little piece right here. This little piece right here. I don't want to overlook this little piece because it's little, but it's tremendous. Knowing that you are indeed a piece of God. Not only are you a creation of God, but you are a part of, a piece of the Creator, a piece of God Almighty. You're a piece of all those millions of pieces and trillions of pieces that put together make the whole that make God Almighty. As I close out tonight, it's my prayer. It's my prayer that no matter what God has in plan for you in this upcoming week, the same way God brought the Hebrew people out from their suffering, God can bring you out from your suffering. And it's my prayer that no matter whatever God has planned for you in this upcoming week, that God Almighty blesses you and yours with peace.